Find the volume of the solid obtained by rotating the region bounded by the curves y equals 1 over x, the x-axis, between x equals 1 and 2, and rotate it about the x-axis. Y equals 1 over x. Looks like this curve here. And x equals 1 and x equals 2. These are vertical lines, and there's the x-axis, and we're rotating about that x-axis. So the first question you ask yourself is there a gap between your region and the axis? And the answer is no. When the answer is no, it's either disk or shell. 9 times out of 10, when you're trying to decide between disk or shells, you usually choose disk, but let me go further with it. You need to draw your rectangle. When you're drawing for disk, it's perpendicular to your axis of rotation, and when it's shells, it's parallel to your axis of rotation. So for disk, it's going to look like this, perpendicular to your axis. Then that thing is going to be moved horizontally, so the variable that it's going to be in is x. If you're doing shells, then you're going to have the horizontal rectangle. Oops, sorry. You have the horizontal rectangle and you have to move it vertically. That's going to be in terms of y. And we're going to go with disk. So all we need for disk is to be able to figure out what the radius is, because the formula for the volume of a disk, volume using disks, is pi times the integral from a to b, the radius squared. In this case, we're in dx. What's this radius? The radius is this height up to the function here. It's the distance off of the x-axis. It's the distance off the x-axis, and that's y. But since we're in x, we have to put the f of x. And that f of x is your function. I'm sorry, I said 1. The f of x is your function 1 over x. So you're talking about pi, and then we have 1 over x. That quantity gets squared. That's your radius. From what to what? You start at x equals 1. You end at x equals 2. Well, that's just going to be integrating x to the negative 2. Square the top, square the bottom. And it does us no good to try to think about integrating 1 over x squared with a log. That's not the log of x squared. Please don't do that. That's not equal to that. The only time you do a log is if the power on the denominator is a 1. And so you have to treat it like a power rule in reverse, where we say that this integral is x to the negative 1 over negative 1. We add 1 to the exponent, and we go from 1 to 2. But it's better to think about it as negative 1 over x, and from 1 to 2 we end up with negative a half. Paint myself into this corner here. Negative a half upper limit, and then lower limit is a negative 1. Negative 1. So that's like saying plus 1, and the difference between these would be a half. The answer to the question is pi over 2 units cubed. That's the volume of that disk, the volume of that three-dimensional shape that will be generated by rotating this region.